You are listening to Recovery Queen Melissa Presents Tales from the Trap. I am your host, Melissa McMillan. I am a recovering addict, a human trafficking survivor, and yes, a human trafficking convict. I spent 20 years in active addiction, experiencing things most couldn't imagine. This podcast is where we tell the truth about the streets, about the system, about survival, recovery, trauma, and the people who never made it out. These stories are raw, real, and sometimes they're hard to hear, but you know what? They matter. This is Tales from the Trap. Okay, hello, we're back. Tales from the Trap. So I want to talk to you guys about something. So the other day I did my little episode on Kayla Shesong, and because of that case, somebody had shared, I think tagged me in something about this other case in my community. So I actually knew this person, like we were acquaintances when I was an active user. I don't think I ever spent time with him, but we like hung out downtown kind of thing. So I knew him from there. And so when you're in active addiction, there's like this threat that's used sometimes where like people will say like, you're going to get a hot shot, right? Everybody knows what a hot shot is. It's a lethal dose of sometimes fentanyl. It could be a lot of things. I don't know. It's like a lore. It's like the lore of active addiction. Like, did you hear somebody got fucking hot shotted, bro? Like my buddy he is completely like can't walk, can't talk, in a wheelchair. And the story goes, and I don't know the truth, but it happened in the trap. It happened in the streets that he got a hot shot. And I've seen him with my own eyes. Like he was on like life support and like lives in a home now. And I know it happens. I had someone say it to me that I better watch my mouth or somebody's going to give me a hot shot kind of thing. I know it happens. I also know there are a lot of suspicious drug deaths in Sudbury that aren't investigated to their full capabilities. Like it's weird, but not that the same detective on this open case is the same detective on the last open case. So when I saw this flyer and I recognize CJ, I was like, oh, I know him. And I read it and I was like, so I messaged Kayla's dad and I was like, can you tell me more about this? And he did. And then I said, would his family be interested in me just talking about it? Like, I don't have a big platform, but I have a little one and I live here and these people are just trying to get answers. Nobody's accusing anybody of anything. This is all alleged and I'm not using names throughout this episode, but I did get a lot of detail. And it's wild because I'm familiar with the vast majority. So we're just going to talk about the case and just to try to put pressure on the police to do more. When you have people in custody that you know are supposedly involved in an open investigation of a person's life, like it was a death. I'm not going to call it a murder because it was classified. I saw the coroner's report. It was classified as undetermined. And you know why coroners do that? I'm a true crime fan. You know why they do it? Because they leave it open because it's supposed to be investigated. The coroner notes that he had 4 times the lethal dose of fentanyl along with meth and cocaine in his system. I'm going to play a video of CJ's mom.
January 2024 was arrested. It's in the Sudbury Star, and they're both in front of the court. So they're both arrested with Sudbury Regional Police in custody. Okay, I got a hold of detective, and I said, here's your chance. You got both in custody. Question them. He never did.
Christopher was a father. She's 17 now. His pride and joy.
Stepfather to Brooklyn.
And then his girlfriend had another little girl he loved. Her name was Brooklyn. Also, he's also an uncle to Kaya and his nephew who passed away in 2015. That was hard on him, the passing of the 14-month-old. You know Gail, right? So anyways, Christopher loved the outdoors. So he loved his fishing, he loved the hunting. The summer, into fall, the last year, the year we got clean with him, we had the Christopher we wanted back. The laughing, like doing things again with the family. We went to the Toronto Zoo as a family. And we were just starting to book our next summer trip. And because he asked me that week, I said, hey, we got to think of what we're going to do this summer, our next family trip. Yeah, I know, we'll get together with Felicia. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, he was a loving guy. Everybody I've talked to, you know what I mean? Like, the messages I get from Christopher, the people that knew him, you know what I mean? He gave the shirt off his back to them. Joey McGregor works for, he goes on the streets and helping the homeless. Access, sorry.
Access.
And he was telling me that he'd stop Christopher, and you mean like he'd give him some food or something. He was, no, give it to somebody else. I got family, he'll take care of me. He never took food because he knew we would take care of him. He was homeless.
Take his food off and give it to somebody.
You mean like he had a heart of gold, just like his daughter. That's where she gets it from, is from him. You mean like they cared and loved the people that were around them.
He gave his coat and moved it to somebody.
You mean my husband's trying to say in the background that he gave us his own coat to somebody.
In the wintertime.
You mean like just having him not here, Melissa, you know what I mean? Like, it's impacted all our lives drastically. We'll never be the same people again. You mean, we just want the justice for him so he can at least rest. You mean, this won't change me to go back to where I was, because I can't. That person back then is gone permanently. I can never go back. Knowing what my son's been through, you know what I mean? Like, the suffering, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just very hard to even realize that he's even gone still. I mean, I even question myself. You mean, was that him in the casket? I mean, is he in witness protection somewhere? You mean, like, that's how I'm thinking because of this, because he wouldn't do this. You mean, like, he wouldn't have done this because I sat there one day, Melissa, I'm going to tell you this really fast, I was at the lights on Paris. We're parked, waiting for the light to go green, and I looked over at the white crosses, and I said to him, just please beg me, don't ever, you mean, like, just promise me, Christopher, that I will never put a cross there for you, and because I don't want to ever have to tell your daughter that you're gone. And he had his face down. I remember it was yesterday, and he was crying, and a tear going down his face. And he goes, Mom, I promise you I wouldn't do that to you or Annabelle. And I'll never forget that. And then I couldn't find him one time, and I put it on Shutout Sudbury, and looking for him, asking people if they've seen him, because I drove the streets days I've never seen him. And Joey McGregor messaged me and said, Christine, I see Christopher all the time, every day. He's in the YMCA parking garage. So I went, and I bought a bunch of food, because apparently they had tents in there. I went to Food Basics, got a case of water and a bunch of food, because I knew, I mean, everybody's hungry there and thirsty. So I went there. Chris was sleeping in a tent. I woke him up. I said, Chris, I got a bunch of food here for you and the people around you. And he got up to help me unload it. And I'm sitting there and begging him to come home. Just come home. I said, you mean, you know you always have a bed? The door's always open for you. I just want you home. And I was crying because I was begging him to come home. He had his face down, and he was crying, and the tears were just dripping off his face to the ground. And I just begged him to come home, and he said he couldn't. He wasn't ready. But when we got him back, that was the best gift ever. I thank God for giving me that last year with him.
And there you have it, folks. These are the kinds of people that Christopher had in his life. He had so much to live for. You can hear it in his parents' voice. You know, Christine is talking and her husband is talking in the background, and you know, they're trying to tell me all the wonderful things about Chris. He had a family. He had a family that he wanted to go home to, but he was stuck in addiction. Nobody who has that much to live for takes a dose of fentanyl that is 4 times the lethal dose when you're a seasoned addict, unless you want to hurt yourself. I don't think he wanted to hurt himself because his mother was waiting for him in the parking lot. She was picking him up shortly after. So you can hear it. Christine is beside herself. She's thinking, is he even dead? Maybe he went into witness protection. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? If it was an overdose that you could live with, she could accept. You know, if it was a lethal dose, but it was enough to kill 4 people. Easy to figure out here, in my opinion. Easy for people to figure it out. It makes no logical sense.
It was May of 2021.
Chris was incarcerated at the time. I'm not sure how long he was in before that time, but I know I was looking for him on the streets, and I found out that he was incarcerated. And one day in May, he called me, and I said, "Where have you been?" And he said he's been incarcerated. And he also was talking about that he had died while he was incarcerated, and that he was brought to the hospital, and they brought him back. Doctors told him, he told me at the time, that if he OD'd one more time, that there was nothing else they can do to save him. Because I guess with the paddles of bringing him back, it weakened his heart, and there's no chance next time. So Christopher went back to the jail after he left the hospital, and he went in the hole, and he dried up on his own with no help. When he got out, it was June, beginning of June. He came home, and he was on nothing, no methadone, nothing. He was excited. He wanted his family back. He has a daughter who is now 17, and he just wanted his family back. I mean, he wanted a second chance at life. He got the opportunity. He got a job. I was driving him back and forth to the island every day, up until I think it was November, late November. And then he went on no job because of the snow. He was building a house, a movie star or an actor's house up in the Birch Island or somewhere around there. But anyways, he was clean. He was using my car. He was doing Uber. I mean, in downtime, just to keep himself busy. Christopher had to be busy. That morning of the 23rd, it was a Wednesday, I was texting him, "Hey, you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? I've been messaging you. You mean, yeah, last night you didn't respond." He didn't answer me. I went and picked up Gail around 1 p.m. that afternoon. We texted him, Gail and I, and said, "Hey, you mean, like, I'm downstairs." Gail said, "Mom's downstairs." I mean, usually he would come down. You mean, come and see me. Nothing. I dropped her off, I think, like 2:30, 3 o'clock, same thing. "Hey, I'm here." You mean, like, no response. So I said, okay, well, maybe he's downtown or he's busy, or, you know what I mean? So I tried calling his phone. It went straight to voicemail. So anyways, during that time frame, by 9 p.m., I'm texting him saying, "Christopher, what's going on? You haven't answered any of my messages. I mean, please call me. I'm worried. You mean, did I do anything? Are you upset with me?" And nothing. I went to bed about 9 p.m. About 20 after 9, my husband, James, got up, and he says, "There's police cars in front of the yard." My response to him was, "So we live in Unraveling." He says, "No, they're walking up the driveway." So I jumped out of bed and I went to the door. And I said, "Hi, can I help you?" And he says, "I'm looking for Christine or James." I said, "I'm Christine." He goes, "I hate to tell you this, but," and I told him to stop. I said, "Don't tell me." And he goes, "I'm sorry, but I'm here to tell you that." And I said, "Don't tell me he's gone." And I'm crying. "Please tell me he's not gone." So I shut the door because I had my 2 dogs. So I went outside, and I'm standing bare feet in the snow. And I'm crying, screaming. And he goes, "I'm sorry to tell you, Christopher has passed away." He said, "I regret to tell you this." And I'm screaming. By that time, my husband came out, and he's, "What's going on?" I told him Christopher had passed away. So meantime, my husband brought me in the house. And first thing I kept thinking was, I got to tell his daughter. I've got to tell his daughter. And I jumped in the car, and he stayed home to contact whoever he was contacting to tell him about our son. And on the way, I kept calling, and I finally got a hold of his girlfriend, Felicia. And I said, I was crying, and I said, "Listen, the cops just left." She was wrong. I said, "Christopher's gone. Christopher's gone." And I'm screaming the phone. I said, "Don't tell Annabelle, I'm on my way." I said, so on the way there, I called my sister. I kept calling her and calling my mom's phone number. I'm trying to get a hold of one of my family members in Ottawa. Finally, my sister answered, and I'm screaming the phone, "He's gone, he's gone." And she goes, "Who's gone?" I said, "Christopher, he's gone." She passed the phone to one of my sisters, and I had to tell her too. And they said, "We're so sorry. We're on our way. We're going to pack up, and we'll be there." Finally, I get to Annabelle, his daughter, the house, and Felicia is outside having a smoke. She's crying. I embraced her. We both cried. I walked into the house, and Annabelle's coming out of the kitchen with a bowl of popcorn. So I walked in, and then I sat there, and she looked at me. We could tell we were both crying because me and Felicia walked in together. And she was strong, and I grabbed her popcorn, and I put it down. And I hugged her, and I said, Daddy's gone. I said, oh my God, Annabelle, I didn't want everyone to tell you this. Daddy's gone. We're both crying. She fell to the floor. You mean, like, my daughter showed up too that evening. We're all sitting around trying to, like, what happened? He wouldn't do this to himself. You mean, like, even his 14-year-old daughter at the time, Melanie, you mean, like, she, like, the smartest kid, seriously. And she kept saying, Daddy wouldn't do this to himself, Nan. Daddy, and you mean, had plans. Daddy had, you know what I mean? And she's going on, and she's crying. I said, I know, Annabelle, I know. And I said to her, I don't know much yet. You mean, like, the cop, James asked the cop to leave. You mean, like, I don't know much. So Gail asked me to drive her home. So I drove her back to Rumball Terrace. There was cops everywhere. It was pouring down rain. I remember this. I pulled up, put my four-ways on, and Gail went into the lobby because there was cops blocking the door and asked if they were here for Christopher. They said yes. So she waved me in. I went into the lobby, and I'm the cop there saying, I'm so sorry. During that, from 12 until 7, they called 911. They stole belongings off him. Jewelry, the wallet,
Nintendo Switch.
Laptop. His laptop. They just stole stuff. They robbed him. To another house, tried selling it to them. They reached out to us to tell us that they had Christopher's belongings. James, my husband, called Detective Andrew Zalotti, told him, and he told James to go pick it up. Instead of going and get it and doing fingerprints, right? You mean, like, okay, go grab your stuff. And then when Christopher passed away and the coroner showed up, they said Christopher was laying down. The cops told me this, right? Because that's what, I guess, talk was. Anyways, Christopher was laying down when he died. But in the coroner's report, Christopher was sitting up, his face forward, vomit between his legs, and he had a crack pipe beside him with a torch. But they didn't fingerprint that crack pipe or the torch. You mean? If they did, you mean? There's no way.
I'm going to include a couple videos of voice clips that I received from CJ's wonderful mother. And you guys could just be the judge. I think it should be looked into. I think none of it makes sense. CJ was an addict. Everybody in that house should have had Narcan. Like let me just say, there was tons of people in that house. Why didn't nobody Narcan him? It doesn't make sense because his body wasn't found. I mean, sorry, the death wasn't reported for 7 hours after death. He was robbed of all his stuff. Allegedly, somebody that was in that house stole a switch, a whole bunch of stuff. His mother will talk about it. But the person who they sold it to called the mom, Christine. So Christine calls the detective and says, they sold my kid's stuff. The same people that were in the house when he was dead sold his stuff. You need, like, what? Are you going to go get it? No, you know what the detective said? You can go get it, though. What are you talking about? So, you know, people, because the police, I'm going to share the video, but the detective, according to Christine, says, I'm having a hard time. Nobody will talk to me. You know, you're called a goof or a rat or a bird if you talk to the police. So he's having a hard time. But two people that were allegedly involved, two people that were at least in the house because you had all this shit, right? So you were fucking there, right? Right. They get arrested. Two of them get arrested. So his mother calls the detective. It was in the paper. Everybody knew these people were in the bucket. So you would think a detective would go and talk to these people, right? He didn't. There's a perfect time to go and talk to somebody. Perfect time. Right? Right. Let me just say, a lot of people say a lot of things when they're sitting behind bars and want to get out. And he could have got actual information, but he didn't. And that's why the family just wants answers. They want the police to do what the police are supposed to do. They want what the detectives are supposed to do. That's why I'm confused. I'm confused why you're saying no one will talk to you, but you had an opportunity because they were in custody and you did nothing. And then when you're told that CJ's stuff was sold by the same people that were in the house and the same people that were in jail, you tell the family to go pick it up. Oh, you can go get his stuff. The people who got the stuff were better enough people because they did their due diligence just as human beings. They don't have a duty to protect. They just aren't pieces of shit and decided to give back the person who had just lost his life, his stuff, back to his family. So they reached out to the mother. Like, I'm just at a loss. I'm at a loss. So I'm going to talk about the day Chris lost his life. He was seen not long before his death because the death wasn't reported for 7 hours. So the death was called by medical professionals at 8 p.m. But apparently he lost his life at 12 in the afternoon in a trap. There was a dead body there for 7 hours. They robbed him also, so they knew it was dead. Like, do you understand what's happening here? Are you getting what I'm putting down? I'm not trying to be speculative, but it doesn't make much sense because he's seen at like 10:45 downtown by somebody I know very well that works in addictions, that works outreach, and always has had eyes on CJ for his family and would report back when she would go online and say, I can't find CJ. He's really struggling. Anybody's seen him? This addictions worker, who I know, would reach out to the family and say, yeah, I see him all the time. So that day, he was seen by this person who said he wasn't high at all. And then hour or two, give or take, he's got 4 times the lethal dose of fentanyl, meth, and coke, in his system. 4 times. I'm a fentanyl addict, right? I'm in recovery from fentanyl. And when you're when you're watching all your friends die, you're pretty careful. You always carry Narcan. You always know there's Narcan in the room, and you always know that whoever you're with is going to Narcan you. Then that's just the rules, or you end up dead. And I know CJ was a pretty seasoned addict. He was struggling. He was like me. He would do well for a bit and then fall back and end up right back in the streets. He had a very similar pattern because he had really good parents that would catch him when he would fall, or he would go into jail and he would get better and he would go and get work. And he wasn't just a normal addict on the streets. This person had work. He was a father. He was very involved in his children's lives. He was very involved in his family's lives and would go on trips with them. That's not the regular downtown unhoused addict that he was with that day. And I say that, let me just say it from experience. I'm familiar with this whole situation, right? I just find it really odd. There's another person that passed away, had very similar circumstances. Very similar circumstances, because I know if someone was dead in the same trap that I was in, I would know. And it's very uncharacteristic of the people I'm familiar with that were there to not be that way, is what I'm trying to lay down here. The whole thing is very odd. It's very odd. And I probably raised a lot more questions than the police have, because they just say, oh, nobody will talk to us. You're a detective, though, homie. Like, do your detectiving. What the fuck? His cause of death, his time of death is around noon, right? Well, they don't call for hours upon hours upon hours. So it took 7 hours to realize the guy was gone. You had to rob him first, though, right? Right. I've heard this happen. I actually lost a really good friend of mine, Kevin, because of this. I'm not convinced of anything. It all sounds suspicious to me, because if you'll rob a dead body, I wouldn't put it past you to cause somebody's overdose. I wouldn't, because I've seen it. I'm not going to drop names, but I've seen it, because my friend is like, I hate to use the term vegetable, but can't walk, can't talk, lives in a home. And as the lore goes, somebody gave him something. So I find it fascinating. So many cases in the city, just in my day alone. I can't even talk about the stuff that happened before my time, but in 2000 and let's say 2005, 2004, one of my friends was found dead in a motel room. And the circumstances were ridiculously suspicious. Her mom put up billboards in our community begging for help. There was never any closure on that case. Ashley Shelbert. And these families spend the rest of their lives searching for answers. Ashley's family is still searching for answers. My kid is 19. She died before Cadence was even born. It's been 20 years of her family trying to seek answers for an extremely suspicious death. I'm not going to go into details here, but let me just say, it seems like there's a pattern of whenever there's drugs involved and the person was struggling with addiction, the injustices, the lack of investigation seems to be a pattern in this city. When I've got families, I've had 2 families in a week span of time say, yeah, please talk about my kid's case. They're not doing anything. So every time Christine gets information, she will call this detective, and the detective will add it to the file and then close it again until they call with more information. That's not an open investigation to me. You're not actively investigating anything. Like, you should know when the players in this case are incarcerated. You should know, and you should jump at the opportunity to talk to them every single time. They don't have to talk to you, but I fucking would be pulling them off range every chance I fucking got. Just saying. It's very suspicious. Very suspicious. Christopher loved life. He was an uncle, a father, and he was very close with his family. And Chris had been in a lot worse situations drug-wise. Like, his active addiction had been worse before than this. That's why it's very odd that this was the time that he overdosed on 4 times the lethal limit of fentanyl, and not when he was living in Tent City. I don't know. Because statistically, overdoses happen, they spike in the wintertime, because there's a lot of Fent users that are homeless and that are using Fent to just not feel the freezing cold, living in tents. That would seem like a do you get what I'm saying? Not in a trap in his sister's building when he was going back to work in 2 weeks. 4 times the lethal limit of fentanyl. I know I was a pig in active addiction, and there are times when people use just so they could die. This was not one of those times for CJ. As an addict who dealt with opiate addiction for 18 years, this seemed like just a very surprising thing. Okay, so let's quickly go over it again. Chris had met his mom a few days before. He's staying in the same building his sister lives in. Right? So he sees his mom there dropping Gail off all the time. He sees her a few days before. He's with the girl who allegedly stole his things, sold them, and then the purchaser called the Nevilles. So he's with this girl, introduces her. Also, she says in the voice clip, but she uses their names. She drops every single name, so I had a really hard time editing her clips because she's dropping first and last names. And I can't do this. I can't do that on here because I don't need a cease and desist. But allegedly, because CJ's sister lives in that building, that night, she saw that girl pushing a bunch of shit in a shopping cart. Right. So he sees his mom with this girl, with a dog. He's got a dog, right? He's at a house that the cops told the Nevilles that when he went there, it was a trap. There was people everywhere, he said, like all over the place. There's video of people coming and going from that apartment. So you're telling me all these people were there, and there was a person that was dead, the person that is known to use down, and he was there for 7 hours. You guys didn't notice, eh? No, but you noticed you stole his shit. Like, make this make sense, because the math ain't mathin', like, at all. So he sees the addictions worker and then decides he's gonna go take 4 times a lethal dose of fentanyl, crack, and meth in the building that his sister lived. Like, it's not logical. And I'm not saying addicts act logically, but Chris was going to work in 2 weeks. He was not in any place to try to hurt himself with fentanyl. He had just had a little bit of sobriety, and then he got laid off from his job and end up back in active addiction again, which is so common. And I find I've had so many people that I know that the people in the street say that they were given hot shots, and that's why they were found, like my friend Stephanie Cummings. Well, we were acquaintances. We fuck with the same people. I didn't really know her that well, but I definitely heard what happened. And it was like well known what happened to her, that she was given a little, yeah. And then her body was thrown in a ditch. So I don't know. And then the person that apparently did that to her years down the line, he bear maced me, first of all, this man. Apparently he died of a drug overdose as well. But there's a whole bunch of suspicious shit around his death too, because he didn't do fentanyl. You know how I know this man that said they say died of a fentanyl overdose didn't do fentanyl? Because he would make me come to his house to try it before he would buy a bunch off a plug. He wouldn't even do it. Ever. He was a crackhead. So you're telling me he died of a fentanyl overdose? Right. That's another family still not no closure, don't know, don't believe what this story is. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I find it hard to swallow that so many, just in the last decade, there have been so many deaths where either people were left. My other friend, I'm not going to drop his name because I don't want his mom to feel a sort of way, but a very close friend to me got robbed, left his body there. How can you not further investigate these when you know that the like I don't understand. I just don't. All of it's suspicious. So I want to add that so many people who are in active addiction were in active addiction when Chris lost his life, have reached out to his family to tell them the same story over and over and over again. People have walked right up to her. She was at this event and she was driving around with the sign on the back of her car, justice for Christopher. And somebody actually stopped her and gave her some information and said, apparently, allegedly, according to the streets, I guess you would say, the person that is allegedly involved with Chris's death has links to other suspicious deaths. And it's the same story all the time that she's getting. So you have to understand her drive and want to figure out what happened, because other people are telling her that it's common knowledge that this happened. His stuff was given back to his sister after his death by someone that was in the house. Stuff that was on his body, a watch, some other stuff. So she reached out to this person and asked, and he said, oh, he sold it to me. Anyways, I just thought I would put this little video together. I don't have a large platform, but I do have one. And if we get 5 shares and a couple of likes, 5 more people will be interested in hearing this story going forward and the road to justice for this poor family. Chris is so missed by his friends, by his family, by his community, by his children. And he had so much planned in his future. He was going back to work in 2 weeks. He had daughters. Sad. It's sad. And his name is on a list of cases like this that will never be solved, that are just classified as overdoses. Most of these deaths are classified as overdoses. Chris's family got really, really lucky with this coroner who recognized this extremely odd amount, 4 times the lethal dose for a fentanyl addict, for a regular fentanyl addict. Why would you do 4 times the amount of down? Nobody else died in that house that day. The math ain't mathin'. So I just thought I would use my platform to talk about this because I think it's very just odd. And his family's explanation seems the most logical. But I will let you be the judge. And Chi miigwech, everyone.